Friday the 13th this Friday in October. Like that's fun. Friday the 13th in October. Ready for it. All right. Did everyone have a good weekend?
Oh, yeah.
It was hot. I spent so much time in the sun this weekend, like too much. I have the worst sock hand I think I've ever had in my life. My feet are so white. And then like it stops like right at ankle socks. And my kids just make fun of me for it constantly. And they're like, it's getting worse every week. And I'm like, well, I know we spend all day Saturday and Sunday out in the sun. And at this point, like there's no fixing it. Like the sun like bounces off my feet. It's like, nope, not even gonna try. So yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. I took a picture like a week ago. I would share it with you, but that's I don't know if I can find it. But I took a picture of it so in the dark. It looks like I'm wearing white socks. I don't know why I shared that with you.
I want to see the picture.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll find it. Eventually. You're ready. All right. The 31. So I wrote that up there. Right. Don't forget about the homework assignment that's due this evening. I heard a lot of you talking about it already, but don't forget that is due by tonight. You're only turning in one. A couple people asked me that by email. You're only turning in one, and then you have another one that is due kind of mid-November. Okay, so one this time and one next time. And if you don't get it in by that deadline, you can still email it to me, but it will be late. But you can still turn it in late. Better late than not at all. Are there any like last questions about that? Anything else about the homework assignment? Probably almost done with it or done with it at this point, but any questions? Okay. So we will move into chapter 7 today. So we talked a lot about communication. And thankfully no dinner issues over the weekend. Though like I said, we did end up going to McDonald's anyway, but that's okay. We go there, as I said, way too often. But we'll talk about the other kind of half of this, which is chapter 7. So different types of love. I have kind of a fun little love quiz that I'll give you later, which I think is kind of an interesting thing to take and think about. And then we'll talk about the chemistry of love and what happens when we fall in love with somebody, like on a biological level, and so on. So that will be our topic for today. And then after this, we go to childhood and adolescent and adult relationships and sexuality. So those are our next topics. So I put some pictures up here of people who looked like they were in love, right? Help us get into the mood and the spirit of being in love today. I also have a little montage of video clips that I found online, which I thought was kind of fun. So I'm going to play that for you just to get into the mood and spirit of love today. So let me bring that up. This video, I'll be my word for it. Okay, so let me bring this back up. So I love that, and it's got so many different movies in there, which I think is great from a whole range of different people. And we're going to talk about a bunch of different types of love. So I think that's a great way to start thinking about that a little bit. Oops, here we go. Love is a very, very difficult word to define. Right, it's something that means very different things to different people. I had this like, what is love up here? And then it made me have to like, let's see if it plays. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Like it just the second I put it up there, that was in my head. So I had to put it in your head too, right? But it's something that is very hard to define. Right. And what it means to one person, it can mean something totally different to another. There are different types of love, different loving kinds of relationships. Here's our definition. Very sad definition for love, right? A special attitude with behavioral and emotional components, right? Feels very unsatisfying to say that is how we would define love. But that's kind of the core definition of it. Something that's difficult to measure, difficult to define, and difficult to like operationalize and study even because there are so many different types. And that's where we'll start today, is kind of looking at what are some of the types of love that we've identified. And these are by no means like comprehensive, there are even more, but let's look at some of the different types that have been identified by a bunch of different theorists over time. And this is probably the most basic distinction that we often make. right? Two different types of love. And in this case, we're talking about like love in a romantic relationship. But there's romantic or passionate love, and then there's companionate or conjugal love. And romantic, passionate love, we sometimes call infatuation. You could argue that rather than love at first sight, it's more like infatuation at first sight, right? Because you don't know somebody yet, right? It's more that you are kind of obsessed with them, infatuated with them, drawn toward them in some way. Romantic love has a lot of like sexual desire that comes with it. It's very, very short-lived. It's something that actually cannot chemically last, which is a little sad in some ways, but it helps when you understand why. But it's something that has a lot of intense psychological feelings, a lot of sexual desire, a lot of craving for an individual. You feel complete, like they're like the perfect person for you, even though you don't know them yet, right? That's often a very common element of like love or infatuation at first sight. But again, tends to be short-lived, lasts about like 3 to 7 months on average. 7 months if you're lucky, 3 months is much more common. And this is actually a reason why a lot of couples break up after a very short period of time, like 3 to 7 months. A lot of couples will break up as these feelings fade. You have to either transition here or the relationship sometimes will end, right? And it's very, very common because this one down here, companionate or conjugal love, is kind of when you move out of that infatuation phase and you're starting to love and accept somebody for who they are. You get to know them better. You've had your first fights with each other and you've navigated that. Usually in the beginning, there's not a lot of fighting because everything is so like perfect in a sense. And you don't maybe even know them well enough yet to have that fight. But companionate or conjugal love is more of like a deep attachment, a familiarity. You love them for who they are and accept their shortcomings, right? They have baggage that goes with yours in a sense, right? Like in a way you have moved past just those feelings of desire into something more enduring, right? And so this is something that we talk about as like a very basic distinction, you know, that beginning stage versus kind of a longer lasting relationship and love. And not to say that this doesn't have passion, right? You have to find ways to have that passion and desire in there, but you do have to transition to that if a relationship is going to last. Yeah.
I'd say a long distance relationship would keep you romantic.
It could. It could, right? Because in a sense, right, you're kind of constantly like reinvigorating that like distance and then closeness and distance and closeness. It's got its own challenges, right? But it could maybe prolong that a little bit as well, right? And sometimes people like, you know, periods of time apart to try and kind of reinvigorate that at times too. I'm not one of those people. I'm a like, we're never going to be separate kind of person. Like we do everything together kind of person, but some people love that, right? No, not me. I'm jealous and I'm very possessive and like, no, but I'll put that out there in the world. Luckily it works because my partner's the same way. The triangular theory of love is another perspective. This one's 3 types, right? And another very popular theory, right? So here we talk about passion, intimacy, and commitment being the 3 components of love. And what Sternberg, the one who proposed this, came up with is that you can have these 3 different elements that combine together in different ways. Right, so you can have different types of love depending on which component you are expressing or feeling. So he said that passion is something that's going to be really strong in the beginning, but then it fades, which kind of builds off of the last theory. And that intimacy and commitment are things that are going to build over time in a successful loving relationship. So what we get then are these variations in these components, right? So you can have infatuation or passion alone, which you would call infatuation. So that's like the beginning of a relationship where you just have the passion piece. You can have intimacy alone, which would be liking somebody. You can have commitment alone, which would be empty love. And sometimes people stay in relationships because of the commitment piece only, and that would be kind of accounting for that. And then you can have different combinations of like intimacy and passion, intimacy and commitment. And then there was like the holy grail of love in the middle, which you call consummate love. And consummate love is when you had all 3 components of intimacy, passion, and commitment working together. And then you get that kind of ideal, like all-consuming consummate love. So kind of different types of love depending on which component you have. And this makes room for things like friendships, where like maybe you have emotional intimacy, but no passion, right? So you like and love, care about that person in that way. Or again, the empty love or infatuation and so on. One more theory, though there are quite a few more, but one more that I'd like to talk about with all of you is the color of love theory. Right, so this one proposes 6 different types of ways to love someone, called the colors of love sometimes. So eros, ludos, storge, mania, pragma, and agape, right? 6 different types. And I have a little, I kind of put this together. So it's not a formal quiz, but it's something that like I kind of adapted from some online resources. And I think it's pretty accurate for the most part, in the sense of depending on how you think about it as you take it. So I'm going to give you this colors of love quiz, but don't start it yet. I need to give you a little bit of information before you begin. But let me give one of these to you, and then I'll explain to you. Okay, so this little quiz, what you're gonna do is reading these statements and then rating them from 5 to 1, right? 5, you strongly agree, 1, you strongly disagree, and 3 is kind of like neutral in the middle. But you need to take a stance before you start this test, and you need to be consistent all the way through it. Okay, so what you can do is you can go a couple of different directions. Okay, you can think about a relationship that you're in right now, and then answer all of them according to that relationship. You could think about a past relationship if you wanted to, and answer it thinking about that. You could think about your ideal. So this is what I would want if I could have anything. But you have to kind of pick one. If you think about your ideal and the relationship and the past one, your results are going to get a little like skewed. So try and pick one, like what would you like, or your ideal in general. A current relationship, a past one, just pick one in your mind and run with it. But go through all of these. And with each statement, again, do you strongly agree all the way down to strongly disagree? And then at the end of each little section, like for eros, you're going to add up your score. You don't have to divide or do anything crazy, just add them. And you'll do that for each section, and then we can talk about it and what it means. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of time, and I'm not collecting this, obviously, so it is yours.
And don't forget to add up your total for each section as well. That'll be important for your results. So another minute or two, and we can talk about it. Who wants to be the? So if you're still adding, totally fine, keep going with that. But let's, I just want to tell you so how you interpret this, right? Basically, the higher the score, the more like that type of love that you are, right? The lower the score, the less likely that matches. So you might have more than one, like so you might have one that's the highest. If you have ones that are very close in number, then you probably have more than one type of love style. And so it might depend on the relationship you're in, or maybe you're kind of expressing all of them. So kind of funny, I have three that are almost the exact same number, Eros, Mania, and Agape. So I'm romantic, crazy, and selfless. Maybe, I don't know if that's good or bad, but that might be a good combination. I don't know. It's clearly worked okay for like 20 years, but romantic, crazy, and selfless, those are my three. But how many of you have more than one like score that are like aims the same? Couple of you, a bunch of you, great. And so again, it might depend, or you might have multiple styles of love. And you want to have one that's very clearly not you, like it's very low. Okay. Several of you, so I know like when I was answering some of these, I'm like, oh yeah, no. I have a couple that are like really low, and then a couple that are really high. I don't know, what do you think? Does it fit you? Does it not fit you? What do you any reactions at all? Is that a thought? Kind of in the middle, so. Any thoughts? Like, does it fit, not fit? Thinking about your relationships, or like, I don't know which stance you took, but any kind of reactions at all? Yeah,
Well, I thought about like my past relationship.
Sure.
The one that I just got out of, and it ended very terribly. So I kind of like was thinking about it before that
sure.
stage. And my high score was Eros, the first one. And it says it probably reflects the secure attachment style, which is not me at all. Like
Yeah.
I'm very like anxious attachment.
Mhm. Yeah, and you know what's funny is I actually just had the same moment, because that was one of my three, and I don't have a secure attachment style like either. So a lot of the theories around love is that it comes out of our attachment style with our parents, which is just fascinating to think about in a lot of ways. So yeah, that part, I don't know how I feel about that either. I had kind of the same like gut reaction. There's another hand, yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about kind of terribly. And I got my high score was mania, and it says that it may reflect an anxious attachment style.
Sure.
And I'm not.
Uh-huh. Okay. Interesting. So we've got kind of the polar opposite, right? And in some ways, you know, anything that you take like this is going to be very oversimplified. Like, what is it? Like 7 questions and that's it. But I do think it kind of gives you a general idea of maybe which one might be more like you. And it can completely depend on the relationship, which is why I wanted you to pick one stance, because maybe you have a partner that brings out different sides of you, right? It can also depend how long you've been in the relationship. It's interesting. I've been taking this quiz for like maybe like 8 or 9 years at this point. And my scores like change a little bit over time. And so you might see that as well, that in the beginning of a relationship, your scores might be a little different than later in the relationship, or vice versa. I have some extras. I'm always so hesitant to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I have some extras if you would like to give it to somebody else that you know, that you're in a relationship with or not. I once had this like go really badly for somebody, which is why I'm hesitant. I had a young woman in my class. This was like 10 years ago, but I have not forgotten it. She gave it to her boyfriend and they broke up. So if you give this to somebody, please just be open to whatever comes from it. And like, obviously, this was not the reason they broke up. They were probably long on that path before this, but it was like the catalyst that pushed it over the edge. So if you want to give this to somebody, I have extras. Just promise me that if it doesn't go wonderfully, that is not my fault. Don't stare and glare at me for the rest of the semester. What was that? Going to shoot? So my student gave it to her boyfriend, right? And she didn't like his reactions to the stuff on the quiz. She was really upset about it and broke up with him because of it. And he was pissed because he was like, well, you told me to take it honestly. And I tried to be honest and like answer, and you didn't like my responses. So I should have just lied to you. Oh, it led to a big old fight. Like, oh, it felt so bad. So, you know, and again, like they clearly had issues before this. But if you want to, it's kind of interesting. I, on the other hand, I'm like, now that I've filled this out, I'm going to hide it somewhere and like throw it away. It's interesting, like, you know, you may or may not be comfortable doing that. All the little like love inventories and question things that you do with partners are tricky, right? You have to be open to what they say, right? And so if they say something, it may or may not reflect on you. So you could have them think about their ideal, but then if it doesn't match what you have, again, issues. So I will leave them there. If you want one, just a cautionary tale, I suppose, is what I'm putting out there. But I don't know, any other thoughts or anything else with this? You can keep it, but I do think it's really interesting to think about, and different styles of love
we tend to do better with people who are similar to us, right? Like, so if you are a like crazy like lover, right, a manic lover, you might have a hard time with somebody who's like a very practical lover. Or more easy like example to see someone who's a game playing lover versus a selfless lover, right? And so oftentimes when we have very different love styles, it creates problems. Like I shared with you jokingly, like I'm a very like possessive, jealous person. Like I just am, that's who I am as a person. But my partner likes that. So it works, right? Like, but if I had a partner who likes to flirt with everyone and go out and like be really social, and I'm super jealous and possessive, that's going to be a problem, right? And so when you tend to have people who are somewhat similar, you don't have to be the same, but similar like values and mentalities, you tend to do a little bit better, right? That tends to be something that we see pretty consistently. Complementary is fine, but really, really different and opposite oftentimes leads to some issues. Not to say that you can't work them out, but similar lifestyles tend to do better together, right? Any other thoughts? Anything? Yeah. Yeah, right. I like that reframe, right? Yes, I helped her get out of a bad relationship. I felt so bad though. I still feel bad. It's been 10 years and I will never forget her. And she was really upset about it. Like, even though she had broke up, she's like, you didn't warn me. She was all mad at me. And I was like, but you should have known. So now I have this like big disclaimer in my mind, right? But yeah, I mean, clearly the relationship was struggling. You know, if a quiz can break you, then they were on the path already, right? That's what I'm gonna say.
I'm in the wedding business all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Like you can see red flags, right? Or you see it all the time. Yeah.
So this idea of like attachment styles, it's called Attached.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that book.
I've read it.
And it definitely, like as you said, it's good to have like, you know, you're an anxious attachment when you're avoiding someone who's avoidant. But I've learned that I'm like a very anxiously attached person when my boyfriend is secure. And he's pushed me to be more secure, which is something that's so important to me. And I always tell people like, look at a secure person. Because it just pushes you to be more selfless and practical.
Yeah.
Because being mania, the crazy lover, is not fun after a while.
Sure.
So
I love that you brought that up, and that is a really good book. I've read it as well. I've done a lot of like research on like attachment and attachment theories in childhood and how it correlates to our adulthood. And that book is really cool for kind of talking about that. There's another really great book called oh gosh, I just forgot the name of it. I think it's called How We Love. And it does a similar thing where there's all these really cool like love inventories in there. And it's interesting, your attachment style, there are common patterns of struggles that people have within their relationships based on attachment. So I have a like very disorganized attachment style and my partner is very avoidant. And at times that makes our life hard, right? So what that means is when I am stressed or feeling like emotional, I tend to cling. And my partner, when she's stressed or emotional, tends to pull away. And that has taken 20 years to figure out between the two of us, right? Because if I cling more, she pulls away more and then I feel worse. And so it's like this weird balance of trying to figure that out. And that book talks a lot about like those patterns and how we can end up kind of melding in the middle, which can be a really positive thing. So really, I would recommend that as well. That one and then How We Love are both really cool books if you want to look at this from a different lens. All right, keep going. A little bit about the chemistry of falling in love here. There's a lot of chemistry involved when we fall in love with someone, right? A lot of like biological stuff that's happening in our body when we fall in love or infatuation or kind of that initial attraction, bless you, to somebody. And so when we fall in love, bless you, we tend to feel like a high of falling in love, right? It's almost like a very like exciting, like high, like feeling when we meet someone that we're attracted to and drawn to. And that comes from neurotransmitters and hormones, right? Not to take the like romance away from it, right? But there is a lot of chemical stuff that contributes to that feeling that we have when we're attracted and drawn to somebody. So a couple of things that are happening in the body when we meet someone that we're attracted to, we have a lot of norepinephrine going through our system. Norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter. Adrenaline is more of like a hormone, but they work in a very similar way. Norepinephrine plays a big role in like your palms being like sweaty, having like a dry like throat or a dry mouth. That butterflies in the stomach feeling that you get when you're like excited and nervous. Butterflies in the stomach is really interesting. I'll come right back to this just as a quick side note. That fluttery feeling that you get in your stomach comes from norepinephrine. So what happens is when you're nervous or excited or in love or scared, your body responds very similarly to all of those different emotions. And what it responds with is that fluttery feeling. Now, again, to take the romance away from it, that feeling is actually all of the blood being rerouted away from your intestines and your gut to then give you energy to fight off like a threat potentially. So as your gut shuts down, it creates this fluttery feeling in your stomach, which we call butterflies in the stomach. Right. So it's a very like sympathetic nervous system reaction that we have. And that's where it comes from. And it's very related to norepinephrine and that heart racing, butterflies in the stomach kind of feeling as that blood supply is rerouted away from your stomach to give you energy and stuff to fight off other things. So again, kind of taking the romance out of it, but there are a lot of feelings like that. And that fluttery feeling comes from norepinephrine. Dopamine is another huge one that plays a big role in love and infatuation. Dopamine has a lot to do with like desire and pleasure, right? And so a lot of those feelings of like desire and pleasure and focused attention and desperation for somebody, when you are falling in love with someone, like they're all you can think about. You're like obsessed in a sense, right? And a lot of that is serotonin and dopamine. So we get a lot of like that feelings of like euphoria and energy and like you can't sleep. A lot of that has to do with dopamine and serotonin. Serotonin has a big role to do with like cravings and obsession. And so when people are craving that person that they're like, infatuated with, that is serotonin, right? It's a really big part of that like initial relationship of like craving them, wanting to be around them, can't think of anyone else. There's another chemical called phenylethylamine, or PEA for short. And this one plays a big role in like attraction. It's thought to be found in some substances of food like chocolate, things that we would traditionally call aphrodisiacs, which we'll talk more about in chapter 10. Kind of more of a cool idea than a reality. There actually aren't any genuine aphrodisiacs. They're more like placebo kind of effects. Oxytocin is a hormone, the cuddle hormone. And this is something that is released when we have physical contact with somebody that can give you kind of a rush feeling or a feeling of closeness and connection. We get this when we have an orgasm, when we kiss, when we hold hands, when we have physical closeness and contact with another person, we release a lot of oxytocin. We also have endorphins, which are kind of like our natural feel-good like chemicals in our body that give us that feeling of connection and happiness. And what happens is all of these things course through our system intensely for about 3 months. And then we start to have them taper off. And it happens with everyone, maybe 3 to 7 months. And these things, your body just cannot keep up the same level of them. So they slowly start to fade. And when they fade, people often interpret that as like, oh, I no longer feel the same way about this person. But it's more just your body's chemical reaction. It cannot keep that production up. And so it kind of mellows out. And that's where you have to start to transition to that conjugal companionate love and find little ways to keep these rushes of things going in order to continue in a relationship. So it's very common that after like 3 months, 7 months, they fade. And a lot of breakups happen at that time for that reason. Yeah.
Like an anxious attachment is you never leave that romantic part of a relationship, and then when you're dating someone when they're secure, because if they go into that conjugal,
Yeah.
and you're like stuck in that like constant rush of like, oh, you didn't do this, and it's like because we're comfortable now, and then I don't know, I feel like you never leave that romantic attachment part when you're like constantly anxious.
Isn't that interesting to think about? Like, there is some like truth behind that. Someone who has a very like anxious, ambivalent kind of like style of attachment, or even like a disorganized style of attachment, they alternate so much, and that anxiety might keep you a little bit more in the state of arousal versus somebody who is more securely attached. These things mellow way down. And so what's interesting is you get with a secure attachment style, after a time, it's like that person is just steady, right? Like, so they're kind of in the middle with that, like, okay, well, we're in a relationship, it's steady, it's secure, I'm secure, and they're just here. Someone who's more anxious, you kind of go like this, right? And so you have the highs and the lows. And when their partner doesn't, you could interpret that as you are more in love with them than they are with you, when it could just be more they're having a different like chemical reaction because they have a different attachment style. So I think understanding this and understanding that can really help navigate some of those pitfalls that people fall into in relationships. It's really like fascinating to read these books and study these things. I have a video that goes over this just a little bit, and I'll play it for you. I think it's a nice like little highlight of what we just talked about here. Let me play it for you. But I love that that little summary, right? Kind of talking about these different things. They play a huge role in that level of attraction and desire and obsession and all of those things that happen when we fall in love. And again, tapering off over time, which can change the way we feel about the relationship that we're in. So I think understanding that helps. And there's also lots of little things you can do to kind of boost these. It's actually the perfect time of year for it too. Like anything scary will boost these things very quickly. So like, I mean, obviously, if your partner doesn't like scary, that might counteract anything. But like going to a scary movie, for example, creates rushes of these things because of the fear. It creates norepinephrine, right? It causes you to have butterflies in the stomach from fear. Roller coasters, right? Anything exciting like Halloween Horror Nights and like Not Scary Farm and those things, right? Where you get these rushes of fear. Anytime you have like any kind of thrilling or dangerous situation, it can actually create some of these rushes in there and mimic those effects of these different kind of chemicals. So just as a little side note, you know, people do find ways to incorporate these things later through doing like kind of frightening things or like exciting things like roller coasters and anything that could be a little bit scary. Little tips for your dating in October, right? I guess, I don't know. Take them somewhere scary, mildly scary, right? Especially if they don't like scary very much, right? I was trying to get my daughter to my middle to watch, speaking of scary, to watch Haunted Mansion, because you can watch it now at home. She's like, no, I'm not watching that. It has ghosts. I was like, but they're fake. No. So speaking of scary, not everyone likes scary very much. My middle child hates it so much, right? A couple other things here about relationships and falling in love and so on. 4 things that we talk about pretty consistently that correlate to like attraction and falling in love: proximity, reciprocity, similarity, and physical attractiveness. So your book talks about this a little, that these 4 things tend to play a role in attraction. We are more likely to become attracted to someone that we are close to. Makes a lot of sense. People that we have interaction and proximity to. So this could be geographical proximity. If you interact with someone physically, you're more likely to be drawn to them and enter into a relationship than someone that you're far away from. Kind of makes common sense. We tend to do best with reciprocity. Reciprocity is like balance, right? So it's okay in a relationship if one person gives more than the other at times, and you kind of balance each other out. But in general, relationships that are very unbalanced tend to fail, right? Like if you have one person who's always giving and one who's always taking, it tends to lead to issues. You can alternate, but it tends to be that relationships that are balanced do better. Similarity. As I mentioned earlier, if you are very, very different, that can be problematic. Not always, but sometimes, right? You don't have to have the same interests or anything like that, but people who have similar backgrounds, similar values, tend to do better than people who are wildly different. So opposites might attract, but similar people stay together. It tends to be the rule. And then we tend to do better with people that we are attracted to. And luckily, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So this is very different from person to person. But when we are physically attracted to someone, that tends to correlate strongly with relationship success. So just kind of 4 little elements there. A few other things about like relationship satisfaction, characteristics of high quality, like loving relationships. These are things that we see consistently present in relationships that last. Okay, one of them is communication. We talked a lot about communication last week. When people have good supportive communication with each other, that tends to be correlated with the relationship lasting and being positive and like high quality. When you see your partner as your best friend or your companion, a lot of relationships grow out of friendship. If you like being around your partner and spending time with them, that tends to be a big indicator of a good relationship. One of the most kind of powerful correlations is this one here, which relates maintaining frequent positive interactions. When you have frequent positive, fun, or happy interactions with a partner, that tends to go a long way toward like relationship satisfaction. So having the ability to face and deal with conflict isn't bad. Conflict can be a really good thing, but you need to be able to like deal with it and talk about it and work through it together. Having realistic expectations, having shared interests, having sexual expression and variety, all of these things up here have correlated or like relate to having like positive, long-lasting relationships. So kind of important elements to keep in mind. And I was looking for a clip for something, and like a commercial came up on YouTube, and it was actually like really relevant and kind of fun. And I would like to play it for you as it like relates to this. It's kind of like a barrier to intimacy and communication in a sense. But I thought it was really interesting. So I'll play it for you, and then we could talk about it a little bit after if you have any thoughts. But let me play on, right? Like they really wanted something that was going to be like super amazing and powerful, or like, no, I'm not turning off my phone, right? But this is something I'm sure that so many of us are guilty of, right? Like technology can be an amazing connector and also a huge barrier, right? It can be both at the same time. And like we're guilty of this. My partner and I will spend like hours like laying there, like both doing our own thing on technology, but we're in the same spot. We're just like both doing, I'm looking at fantasy football and she's watching TikTok, right? Like, and that happens like daily. That is both of our like way to like recharge and kind of turn off and do our own thing for a minute. But I've learned over time that if I want to connect with her during that time, I just have to go watch TikTok with her, right? So like I end up watching like 3 hours of TikTok a day because I don't want to lose that time. So I'll be like, all right, I'll come watch TikTok, right? And then check my fantasy football in between the TikTok and then find it. But I think it's just such an interesting idea how like technology can help and hurt. Like there are times when like we'll be watching a movie with our in-laws and we'll text each other during the movie, and I feel like it's a great connector. Like we'll send gifts to each other and just like make fun of our in-laws like the whole time, and it's great, right? Like because they'll be asleep, they fall asleep like 5 minutes into the movie, and then there are other times where it could be a barrier, right? I don't know if you had any like reactions as you were watching that, any like thoughts at all. I just like watching their faces as they find out. Like some of them are so excited. Any like thoughts on that at all? We talk a little more about technology and like dating and stuff when we get there soon. But any comments about technology? The role it might play? TikTok? I watch a lot of TikTok, right? I'm such a like, I'll meet you where you're at. It's fine. Like, and TikTok's funny, so I don't. I have one more thing then that I want to like play and kind of give you as a like short homework assignment, just as a way to kind of pull this in. So we are talking a lot about the chemicals of love. And I have a song for you to play, and I'm sorry if you hate this song. Let me hand up the lyrics. And then on the back, I've given you a space to kind of write your thoughts with this. So let me hand this. We actually have time, so I don't think I have to give it to you. It's always nice not to have them. Some of them are stapled and some of them are. So what I'll do, I'll play this song for you, and here are the lyrics. Feel free to like mark this up and write on it. Sorry, no, not at all. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna play this song in this video. And as you're listening to it, as it says on the back, how does the song describe and or relate to the physical and chemical factors that are involved in falling in love? These ones right here.
right? I think you can find easy examples of norepinephrine and dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. You can find those physical elements in this song. So as you're listening to it, and I have the video for you too, which you can watch. But I want you to feel free to underline stuff on here and mark on this, and then we'll get into groups afterward, and I'll have you work on it together for a few minutes before we're done for the day. But let me play this song for you. So for now, just follow along with the lyrics or know that you have them after if you would like. And I will put the song on. Sorry if I get it stuck in your head. For the people around you, whatever. Let's take maybe just 5 or 6 minutes. So try and you can underline stuff. You can write it on the back. But what I want you to do is try and connect the lyrics to some of the chemicals that we talked about, right? And there's definitely examples of a lot of the stuff here in the song. So I'll go ahead and work on that together, and then you could turn in one sheet per group with all of your names on it. So go ahead and take a few minutes, see what you can come up with. Join them. Look at, I will the same. I got it. And then if you want to join up with them and them too, then you can all go.
Like we have a high as serotonin, so like we don't know each other.
Thanks.
Most obvious one which we need is very bottom here. I think that very obviously talks about the nasty loves. I think that would be probably oxytocin, the touching chemical, in your time. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah, goes a little there. But you have a big fan of that.
And just nobody else leaves. And then which ones are your?
All I know is I need to. I'm looking at one there. That's how it charges. So it's like a firefly. It's not more like a. I just underlined that in my draft.
Yeah, so searching around the obsessions and the obsessions. They're very similar.
Oh,
right. So dopamine is versus certain freedom.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, this one's stimulant effect. So let's just say that you're fine. Yeah.
Sure. Feeling this is my spouse to get that she stay up like an extra so back then. Then I'll think about it. I'll be probably.
They all.
Second one.
I know.
Yeah, so the orphans are more like. It's an opportunity.
So this is probably a grand one. Again, is the rush.
Yeah.
She's having the rush at the bottom of page one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's.
Yeah.
What is that?
Also, the very last line of page one, but it's actually, but you didn't really know what. Big dollars. Perhaps we will show you going back to crazy 77.
Maybe search, that's the same. As no.
Yeah. I spoke with the sexuality ones.
Evaluations.
Yeah. It was. To do like choose what there is and stuff. And
So just a couple more minutes and then we can talk about it together.
sexuality. Decisions. If you feel supported and environment and the reasons why you. Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen the photo. No. It's It did not have much fun. I would look like this over there. Actually, the first thing that you avoid. It shows that job, so that is that.
If you think of our response.
I don't get it. I'm fine. I mean, I still need to find that. Sure. I don't want to find that. I'm barely trying to- You have to write a tree. Stop in market for. Remove the stats. I must show it.
I walked in. See like the playing house. You know, like the. Things like a bird. Oh, shit. I'm thinking.
All right, so in the interest of time, let's talk about this together really quickly before we run out of time and then I can does anyone have what's one of the lyrics that jumped out at you that connects to this? There's a lot of them, but anyone want to start us off with something that connects? Yeah.
I wrote down the line, I get so high when you're with you, but I crash and fade when you're away with more like oxytocin.
Sure.
So you go through withdrawals and you're not physically with the person because that's kind of pretty different touching.
Yeah, right. That high of the closeness and then the low of not being with them, right? Love it. That's wonderful. How about another one? What's something else that maybe you underlined or saw on here that connects? What else do we got? I saw you. You know you.
Said, the lines like, I don't care what you say, they should set the prices.
Mhm. Yeah, that rush, right? That like rush of like all of that norepinephrine or adrenaline coursing through your system, and you can see like little bits in here where some of those things come out as well. But anything else? What else do we have? Did you have another one?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, the line, I was all strung up, my first fight, I think dropped my mind, when you want like the adrenaline. Like,
Yeah.
partner fight or something.
Yeah, right. Any of the things that we're talking about, like the heart pounding really quickly, like heart beating like an 808 drum, like all of that's gonna be norepinephrine and adrenaline. There's a lot of evidence of like dopamine and serotonin stuff in here. Anyone have an example of that they can like highlight? Yeah. Yeah. Right, that obsession, that obsessive thinking, right, is very much serotonin. You're craving and obsessed over somebody. And serotonin and dopamine, we were talking about this over here, have a lot of like similarity to them, but that like, you know, like a lovesick crackhead and obsession and like all these lyrics that she puts in there. I mean, they connect so strongly to all of this. It's like, I know it's kind of like you know, an odd video and like maybe not your favorite song, right? But it has some really good connections to this, where you can see the physical symptoms. I'm staying up all night, like that sleeplessness and hoping and thinking about somebody, right? And those are things that we experience really strongly when we're falling in love with someone. And again, they don't always last, but we can find little ways to bring them back. Anything else that you pointed out? Anything else to add? There's obviously a few more, but anything else? I get to look at them all, but yeah.
I said, love is my drug and you're out endorphins.
Yeah. Right, like kind of like your natural drug, like creating that natural high of being around and being with somebody. So just kind of a way to bring that in and pull them together. Two things before we finish today. Don't forget about the homework assignment. It's due by this evening. If you miss the deadline, remember you can't email it to me. You lose, I think, 10% per day. It'd be better to email it to me tomorrow than not at all. And the second thing, if you wanted one and you're feeling up for it, and you're brave enough and whatever, all the things that we talked about, we have some extra copies of that book was right here. And then if you could just make sure you turn in your sheet with your names on it, so I can give you credit for that activity, if you want to put a pile up here. And then I will see you all on Wednesday. We'll move to chapter 8 and 9 on Wednesday.
Honestly, yours is